I am not a lawyer, but I can't help but feel like there's some perjury happening, and I'm trying to make sense of it all. Today's topic of conversation is Julie Nagel. Now, let me just backtrack here for a second and tell you, if you're just joining my videos, you've probably figured out that I'm way the hell behind. Like, I came into this case now not even a month ago, and I'm scrambling to get caught up. And there are so many people on TikTok that are doing day by day by day, like real-time information. I am not the person you come to for that, because I'm the straggler who's just now learning shit for the first time, and I'm astounded at what's going on. I rely heavily on all of those people doing the Lord's work, but also Brandy Churchwell, who has a podcast called The 13th Juror, which is extraordinarily informative if you have not listened to it. So today I'm going to talk about Julie Nagel. Now, Julie Nagel testified back on May 14th. If you don't remember who Julie Nagel is, so she is a friend of Brian Jr. She's a friend of the Alberts. She was there that night at the party. At one point, she texts her brother Ryan and says, "Can you come get me?" Ryan shows up at the house to pick her up. She walks outside and then says, "Psych, I'm staying." And he leaves and she goes back in the house. And then she leaves later with Jen and Matt McCabe to get a ride home. On the stand, when she testified on May 14th, ADA Lawley asked her, when you were leaving that night and you were in the car with Matt and Jen McCabe and her friend Sarah Levinson, what, if anything, you saw? And she says, "I saw something on the lawn. I saw a black blob." And when he says, as they drove by, so they're leaving and they're driving by, she looks and she's on the opposite side, right? She's on the driver's side, but the lawn is on the passenger side. So she's kind of looking past her friend, but she swears she sees a black blob on the ground. So she's up on the stand and she says, "I saw this black blob." And they said, "About how big?" And she says, "Oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 feet." Now, here is why Alan Jackson backed her into a corner. And here's why, in my personal opinion, she perjured herself. So let me rewind. So the night of the party, Julie Nagel, like I said, is there celebrating Brian Jr.'s birthday. She texts her brother and says, "I'm ready to go home now." Now, her brother had been drinking at some bar with his girlfriend and another friend. As they're driving to pick her up, they come to like a 4-way stop and they're getting ready to turn on Fairview and there's other cars getting ready to turn on Fairview. They flash their lights to tell the other car to go first. Well, that was Karen Reed. So they basically say they pulled in kind of behind Karen. So she pulls up in the street, they pull up directly behind her. Now they're both facing south. So the passenger doors are facing the house. So that's the side of the house. Her brother texts her and says, "We're here." And Julie comes out. Now, there's 2 doors that come and go from the house. There's a front door, and then there's kind of one that's like what they call the side door, which is over by the garage. Ryan swears his sister came out the side door. She swears she came out the front door, but she says she was inebriated. So there's that. She comes out to the car, and they chat for a few minutes. She says when she's at the car, she doesn't even remember seeing the SUV in the street. Like, she doesn't even remember seeing Karen's vehicle in the street. But Ryan and Heather and his friend Ricky, and Ricky's actually the driver. So Ryan is sitting in the passenger seat. His girlfriend's in the back. They're in a truck, but it's one of those extended cabs. So Ryan is in the passenger seat. He opens the door, rolls down the window to talk to his sister. Now, the 3 that were in the truck swear that they pulled up right behind Karen Reed and they could see the car was running, the taillights were on, and they didn't see any activity. They didn't see anybody getting in or out of the car. Julie walks up, she talks to him for a few minutes, she says, "Sorry, I'm going to stay," and she turns around and goes back in the house. All 3 people in the truck swear that when they're leaving, they actually drive and they go around Karen, right? Because they're going south on the road, and as they drove by, they look and they see she is alone in the car. The dome light is on, so they can see that she's alone in the car. So fast forward to about 1:30 in the morning when Matt and Jen McCabe are leaving the party and they offer Julie Nagel and another friend, Sarah Levinson, a ride home. They all are parked in the driveway. They get in the car, they back out, and they start to go south on Fairview, which would mean they would drive past the area where John's body was. Now, again, she's on the driver's side, which is on the opposite side. So she says she saw a blob. Okay, great. Now, here's the problem with this. Julie Nagel never told anybody that she saw the blob. There is not a single police report. There's not any witness statements. There is not any grand jury testimony that she saw anything on the ground, which leads me to believe that the very first time she's saying she saw this was in the trial, when she is sworn in front of a jury and she says something that she's never said to anybody before. Now, she says that that night, as they were driving by, she said, hey, there's something on the lawn, but everybody sort of blew her off and nobody listened to her. But here's the part that really is interesting. You would have thought, so Julie went home. Yes, she's drunk. She goes home and passes out. Probably within the next 24 hours, she finds out that John O'Keefe is dead and that his body was found on the lawn near the flagpole at Brian Albert's home. So wouldn't she connect the dots and say, oh my goodness, that must be what I saw on the lawn that night? And wouldn't she immediately pick up the phone and call the police and say, this might have nothing to do with anything, but I swear I saw something. If nothing else, and by the way, it took less than 2 days before they arrested Karen Read and accused her of killing him, of hitting him with her car. So at this point, Julie is of the mindset that the police are going after Karen for hitting him with the car. So wouldn't she, having seen the blob, wouldn't she want to go to the police because it supports the theory that Karen hit him? She has absolutely zero reason, if she saw something that night, to keep it a secret because it supports the prosecution. I mean, there's the off chance that this poor soul operates without 3 brain cells and she can't connect that the blob she saw might have actually had something to do with John O'Keefe. She might have gone almost 2 years without making that connection and then realized, oh, wait, maybe that's what that blob is. And she waited until she walked into court to say something. So Julie was there that night and she was a witness. She wasn't questioned by prosecutors until much later that year. She was never asked for the text exchange between she and her brother, which would absolutely help form the timeline, right? We would know what time Karen actually arrived because Ryan pulled in right behind her. We would know how long Julie was out there, and we would know about what time that Ryan drove away and still saw Karen sitting there. But interestingly enough, the only person that asked for a screenshot of Julie Nagel's text that night was Jen McCabe. Why would Jen McCabe be trying to piece together a timeline if Karen Read ran over her boyfriend? So now I look at Julie Nagel, and she's been up on the stand, and I can't help but wonder if she's one of 3 things. So 1, she really is so incredibly stupid as to not connect the dots that blob she swears she saw that night was actually something to do with John O'Keefe's death. That takes a pretty obtuse person. Or 2nd, she didn't care. She had no concern about helping the police or anybody else solve the crime. She doesn't care that John O'Keefe's family never gets answers or never gets pure justice. She just stayed out of it because she completely lacks empathy. Or the 3rd, and this is my opinion, I think she's a fucking liar who committed perjury. I don't know. Weigh in below and tell me what you think.